I never liked Thanksgiving. It wasn't the food. I can roast a turkey with the best of them, and mashed potatoes are practically a love language. But the forced smiles, the too long prayers, the pretending, it all clung to me like smoke. This year, though, I told myself I'd go. Just show up, eat, survive, and leave. I pulled up to my parents' house around 3:30, a colonial monstrosity with matching shutters, a yard trimmed so tight it looked afraid to grow, and a flagpole that hadn't flown anything but the American flag since 9/11. My mom still leaves a ceramic turkey by the door, the same one since 1997. I was 37 and successful, but stepping through that door always made me feel 16 again, awkward, quiet, and entirely wrong. Inside, the smell of cinnamon and roasted garlic wrapped around me before I even unzipped my coat. My sister Lauren's voice was the first thing I heard. She was laughing, loud and performative, the way she always did when she was holding court. And she was, of course, front and center on the couch, wine in hand, her shiny new boyfriend Tyler at her side. "Emily," my mom called from the kitchen. "You made it. Not so glad you're here. Not we missed you. Just the acknowledgement of my arrival, like checking a box." "Hey," I muttered, offering a tight smile. I handed over the bottle of wine I brought, Cabernet, mid-tier, non-offensive. She took it without looking at the label and said, "We've got plenty already. I'll just save this for cooking." I hadn't even taken off my boots yet. Lauren, meanwhile, practically leapt off the couch. "Tyler, come meet my sister. Emily, this is Ty. He's working on this amazing startup, it's gonna blow up. Like, he's pitching to actual investors soon." Tyler extended a hand, cocky grin already in place. He was handsome in that artificially polished way. White teeth, square jaw, expensive haircut that screamed, "My image is my product." I shook his hand briefly. "Nice to meet you." His grip lingered a second too long. "You work in tech too, right?" he asked. Lauren mentioned something. "Yeah, something like that." I didn't elaborate. I never do. That's the game. Say less. Let them assume. We moved into the dining room and the performance continued. Tyler was the ringmaster, everyone else his eager audience. He told stories about his grind, his vision, and how one of his beta testers called the product life-changing. My father nodded along like the man had just discovered fire. My mom beamed like she already had wedding plans brewing. I sipped wine quietly and chewed slowly. No one asked me a single question. Not about work, not about life, not about anything. My existence was a placeholder, a stool at the edge of their theater stage. Halfway through dinner, Lauren leaned in with that patronizing tone I'd learned to expect. "You should smile more, Em. People might actually warm up to you." My fork paused mid-air. For a moment, I imagined driving it through the table. Instead, I set it down and stood up. "Excuse me." I left my plate half full and walked out. No coat, no goodbye. The air outside was cold and bracing. I didn't even feel it at first. I just kept walking to my car, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the crunch of gravel under my boots. When I got behind the wheel, my hands were shaking. With anger. With shame. With something I couldn't quite name yet, but it felt like betrayal. And then I heard it. I hadn't meant to linger in the driveway. I was fumbling with my keys when I caught the faint hum of voices from the open dining room window. My father's voice. "I wish Emily would just get married and stop pretending she matters in the world." Laughter. Warm. Comfortable. Complicit. Something broke in me. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a silent shift. A line drawn so sharply in my mind it left a mark. I didn't cry. I didn't drive off. Not right away. I just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, realizing what I had always known but never wanted to admit. In their eyes, I wasn't a daughter. I was a disappointment, a reminder of something they didn't understand, something they couldn't control. They didn't know who I was, but they were going to learn. I don't remember most of the drive home. It's not that I was distracted. I was laser focused, if anything. The road, the headlights, the rhythmic pulse of the turn signal, they anchored me. But everything else blurred. Like my brain refused to store any more humiliation. The laughter kept playing in my head, though, over and over. I wish Emily would just get married and stop pretending she matters in the world. Pretending. Pretending. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Not fear, not sadness. Rage. That deep, hollow kind. The kind that doesn't need to shout to make its presence known. The kind that sits low in your chest and waits. By the time I pulled into my apartment garage, I was ice cold on the outside but molten inside. I slammed the door shut behind me and tossed my keys onto the counter. They skidded across the marble and clattered to the floor. I didn't bother picking them up. I just stood there in the dark, in silence. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the echo of Lauren's voice still ringing in my ears. You should smile more. Maybe then people will like you. Like I was some broken Barbie doll with a missing button for pleasant expression. That dinner, that whole day, it wasn't new. It was just louder. Tyler had been the crown jewel this time, sure. But I'd seen this show before. Lauren, glowing under the attention. My parents fawning over whoever she dragged in like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs. And me? At best, invisible. At worst, the bitter spinster they pitied behind smiles and condescension. I changed into sweats and sat on the couch, legs curled under me, the city glowing quietly outside my window. I looked around my place, clean, minimal, successful. You could tell a grown woman lived here, a woman who had worked for everything she had. No trophies on the wall, no nameplates, no LinkedIn bragging rights in the entryway, because I never needed validation from them. Or at least, that's what I told myself. And yet, here I was, seething because they didn't see me, still chasing recognition from people who had decided long ago who I was and who I wasn't. That's what really stung. They didn't ask about my work, about my life, about what I'd built. And maybe that was on purpose, because deep down, they knew. They knew I'd passed them all years ago, quietly, without permission, without needing them. And people like that? They don't celebrate what they can't control. I replayed Tyler's pitch. We're building an AI tool that revolutionizes how companies hire talent, like actual behavioral pattern recognition. It's wild. My dad had leaned in like a kid hearing a bedtime story. Now that's innovation, he said, stabbing a piece of turkey like it had offended him. Smart. Practical. Not like some of that pie-in-the-sky crap people chase. He didn't look at me when he said it. He didn't need to. It was for me. They didn't know I'd built a company that already outpaced what Tyler was even dreaming about. They didn't know we'd already filed patents on behavioral modeling 3 years ago, that I'd met with VC firms Tyler was still fantasizing about in his slide decks. They didn't know, because I'd never told them. I didn't flaunt my success. I didn't parade my earnings or post photos with CEOs. I kept my life buttoned up and offline. Not because I was ashamed, but because I liked having something that was mine, untouched by their judgment. But now I felt something shift. This wasn't about validation anymore. This wasn't about showing off. This was about clarity, about truth, about making it undeniable. I opened my laptop. Notifications blinked. Emails lined up like soldiers in my inbox, each one a reminder of the world I actually lived in. Not their dining room, not their fantasy of who Emily was, but the one where I was the storm they never saw coming. My phone buzzed. A message from Lauren. Sorry if you were feeling off today. Tyler said you seemed kind of intense. Just a tip. Let loose next time. He likes confident women. I stared at the screen. Intense? That's what they called women who didn't play the fool. I didn't reply. I just sat there, letting the anger settle into something more useful. Something colder. Cleaner. Resolve. Tyler thought he was the star of the show. That was fine. Let him think that. Let them all think that. Because the next time he walked into a room thinking he was in charge, I was going to be the one holding the script. And when that curtain dropped, they'd finally see who'd been writing the story all along. Monday morning hit like a reset button. The sun barely crept over the horizon as I walked through the tinted glass doors of my office building. The air smelled of polished concrete and espresso, and every footstep echoed with the kind of purpose that didn't need to be explained. This was my world, the one I built brick by brutal brick. And unlike my family's Thanksgiving table here, I mattered. Good morning, Emily, Danny called from reception, already clicking through her Slack messages. She didn't even look up. She didn't need to. Your 8 a.m. is in the green room, pitch deck loaded. Thanks, I replied, stepping into the elevator. Floor 27. The ride up was smooth and silent, the city unfolding beneath me in shades of steel and glass. San Francisco always looked like it was holding its breath, always building, always dreaming. Like me. When the elevator opened, my assistant Jamie was already waiting, tablet in hand. Quick rundown. Your meeting with Lee Wei from Apex Robotics at 9, press call with Bloomberg at noon, confirmed, and CFO wants to review Series C burn rates before the board dinner. Also, she paused, Founders Fund wants a follow-up. Add it to the back half of the week, I said, walking into my office, and pull our Series B pitch. I want to compare the growth curve. Jamie nodded. Got it. I shut the door behind me and took a breath. Here, no one cared if I smiled enough. No one told me I was intense. No one tried to measure me against a startup bro with a silver tongue and nothing but vapor in his deck. Here, I was the damn storm. 3 years ago, I founded Seamline, an AI-driven enterprise platform that helped large-scale businesses optimize hiring, retention, and internal promotion. What started as a side project in my garage became a multi-million-dollar company with clients on 4 continents. We didn't just automate HR. We dismantled bias in hiring pipelines, rebuilt workforce modeling from the ground up, and held a 92% retention rate across our client base. But the secret? I never made noise about it. I kept myself low profile, no flashy LinkedIn posts, no podcast circuits. I let the work speak. I let our numbers scream. And it worked. Until now, I never saw a reason to pull back the curtain. But Thanksgiving had sharpened something inside me. Watching my family fawn over Tyler and his half-baked pitch while dismissing me like I was just some sad, single woman wasting her potential, it flipped a switch I didn't even know existed. They had no idea I ran a company 10 times more advanced than whatever Tyler was cobbling together in a rented co-working space, so maybe it was time I stopped hiding. I poured myself a cup of coffee from the carafe. No assistant, no intern. I made it myself, every morning. It grounded me, reminded me where I came from. My parents didn't pay for Stanford. I did. 2 jobs and a scholarship. No rich uncle gave me seed funding. I bootstrapped Seamline with $11,000 scraped from consulting gigs and late-night code sprints. And I sure as hell didn't get here by smiling more. I sat at my desk, pulled up our pitch review dashboard, and stared at the metrics for a moment. There it was. Founder Catalyst Fund, my new initiative, the side project I'd quietly been building for over a year. A $25 million allocation from Seamline's latest round, specifically carved out to invest in early-stage founders solving real-world problems with integrity, not just noise. I clicked into the submissions folder for our first official pitch day. 52 applications, diverse founders, unique concepts, each one evaluated anonymously, merit first. No headshots, no resumes upfront. Just tech, traction, vision. Exactly how I'd wanted it. Exactly the opposite of how people like Tyler operated. I leaned back in my chair, letting the city light bleed into the room. Somewhere out there, my sister probably still believed I was floating around the tech world doing data stuff. My dad probably still thought AI meant robots that fetched coffee. But none of that mattered, because I knew what was coming. I was building something bigger than all of them, something they couldn't ignore or undermine or pretend didn't exist. And soon, they were going to see it too. My phone buzzed. A Slack ping from my head of people. Quick question. Do you want to personally review the last 10 pitch submissions? One of them looks interesting. I raised an eyebrow. Curious, I clicked the shared folder. And there it was, right at the bottom of the list. Applicant name: Tyler Beck Startup, Verity AI Concept, AI-powered recruitment platform to remove hiring bias. Stage: seed requested investment, $500K. My coffee froze midair. Verity AI, hiring bias. Sound familiar? I stared at the screen, jaw tightening. Of all the applications, of all the startups in the city, he had found his way to my door. And he had no idea. None. I could almost hear his voice in the pitch video, that same smug certainty he wore at Thanksgiving like cologne. I imagined him talking about ethics and disruption, like he hadn't spent the entire dinner talking over me, never once asking what I did. I took another sip of coffee and smiled. A slow, quiet smile. Let him come. Let him pitch. Let him walk into my boardroom thinking he's got the upper hand. Because I wouldn't need to say a word. I'd just be sitting there, at the head of the table, watching it all unfold. I could have rejected it right then. One click, one sentence. Not a fit at this time. Done. His file would disappear into a polite digital void, never knowing how close he'd come. But I didn't. I stared at Tyler Beck's application like it was some kind of cosmic joke. Verity AI. His startup was attempting to do, poorly, what Seamline had been perfecting for years. The same buzzwords, the same promises, the same ethical posturing wrapped in a layer of slick marketing and investor bait. Except this wasn't fate. This was something else. Poetic symmetry? Maybe? I clicked open his deck. The first slide was a photo of a diverse team smiling in an office that definitely wasn't his. Stock photography, guaranteed. The next few were bloated with vague statistics, a line graph with no axis labels, and a mission statement that made my stomach turn. We believe AI can fix the human in hiring. I snorted. Fix the human? That's the kind of empty promise that makes VC bros nod like they've just heard scripture. But real people don't need fixing. They need fairness. They need tools built by someone who gives a damn. His pitch wasn't new. It wasn't special. But it was dangerous. Because people like Tyler always are. Charisma in place of competence. Surface in place of substance. And now he wanted $500,000 to scale it. I should have been furious. Instead, I felt calm. Too calm. Like someone reaching the end of a long game and finally seeing the winning move. I opened my notebook, drew a single square, wrote Verity AI in the middle, then circled it. Just once. Let the application proceed, I told myself. Let him walk into the room thinking this is a win. I didn't add any flags. Didn't send any emails. I didn't need to. His application would move through the same internal system we used for all pitch day candidates: anonymous scoring by the review committee, weighted metrics based on tech viability, and a final panel presentation. He'd think he earned it, and that's what made it perfect. I closed the file and let it sit. The next day, the shortlist was announced. 6 finalists. Tyler's company made the cut. Danny forwarded the schedule. Verity AI will pitch third, she wrote. Let me know if you want to sit this one out. I didn't reply. I'd be there, early, with a front row seat. The week passed slowly, each day grinding by like the click of a loaded safety. I buried myself in real work: client check-ins, partnership calls, fund structuring, but underneath it all, my mind kept drifting back to that green and black logo. The arrogance of it. He had no idea. Lauren texted once that week. Ty says you were in a weird mood at Thanksgiving. Hope everything's okay. I didn't answer. There wasn't a version of okay she'd understand. The morning of pitch day, I dressed differently. Usually, I leaned into the founder uniform, blazer over a tee, jeans, boots. Casual power. But today I wore structure. Sharp navy slacks, silk blouse, hair up, heels. Not to impress, to signal. I didn't want Tyler to wonder if he recognized me. I wanted the moment to hit like a freight train. The pitch room was quiet when I arrived. Glass walls, recessed lighting, rows of matte black chairs facing a low stage. At the front, the review panel table, my seat in the middle. I sat, placed my leather notebook down, and waited. One by one, the other panelists trickled in. VP of Product, our CTO. Good people, smart. Unaware of the little drama ticking toward us, the first 2 pitches went by smoothly. One was promising, a founder with real technical chops and a humble way of presenting. The second was less impressive, but still earnest. Then the door opened again, and in walked Tyler. I felt it before I even saw him. His energy came first. Loud, confident, a navy suit too tight in the shoulders, and that cocky grin plastered on like stage makeup. Hey everyone, he said as he set his laptop on the podium. Tyler Beck, founder and CEO of Verity AI. Thanks for having me. His voice had that practiced rise and fall of a TED Talk wannabe. He had no idea who was sitting 12 feet in front of him. He glanced at the panel, then froze, right on my nameplate. His pupils dilated just enough. To his credit, he recovered quickly. A slight twitch at the corner of his mouth, a momentary blink. But then the smile returned, like it never left. But I saw it. The hesitation, the calculation, the oh shit. He began. Verity AI is building the future of ethical hiring. Companies waste billions on bad hires, and unconscious bias still haunts recruitment. We solve that using AI-driven behavioral modeling, built on psychographic analysis and contextual data. He was speeding up. I didn't take my eyes off him. I didn't smile. I didn't tilt my head or soften my expression. I just listened. Let him sweat. Let him wonder what I knew. The other panelists nodded along. They were focused on the tech, the pitch, the traction slides. But I was focused on him. He knew. I could see it in every stammer he tried to swallow. Every time his eyes darted away from mine, he was remembering the dinner table, the laughter, the line about me needing to smile more. And now I was the one holding the scorecard. When he finished, there was polite applause. Our VP asked a technical question about his dataset. The CTO followed up on scalability. I asked nothing, just wrote one note in my notebook. Ask for ethics audit. And closed it. When we stood to adjourn for the break, Tyler hovered. His smile faltered. Emily, he said, trying too hard to sound casual. Funny running into you here. I looked at him, cool and professional. We'll be in touch, I said, then turned and walked away. I didn't need to say anything else. Not yet. You can always tell when someone realizes they're in over their head. It's not the panic. Panic comes later. It's the flicker in the eyes. That split-second flicker where ego meets reality and realizes it might not survive the encounter. Tyler had that flicker the moment he saw my nameplate. And now, standing under the muted glow of the pitch room's overhead lights, he was trying to pretend he didn't. I watched him take his spot at the podium, adjust his lapel, and force that same salesman smile he'd worn at Thanksgiving. But up close, here, in my domain, it looked thinner, like something stretched over fear. "Good morning," he started, voice steady but an octave too bright. "Tyler Beck, founder and CEO of Verity AI. We're building a smarter, bias-free future for recruitment." I kept my face neutral. No raised brows, no tilt of interest. Just enough eye contact to let him know. I remember everything. His deck was clean. I'll give him that. High contrast colors, bold fonts, those sleek one-line statements meant to sound like vision. But I'd seen these before. Hell, I'd built these before. The difference was, I had actual numbers to back mine. Tyler's numbers? Vague. He name-dropped metrics without attribution, cited clients in the pipeline that sounded suspiciously theoretical, and leaned on buzzwords like ethical, disruptive, and synergistic, like they were going out of style. But he knew his audience. He played the room. "You know, I read a stat last week," he said, pacing in front of the screen now. "Hiring bias costs U.S. companies over $64 billion a year. That's not just a number. That's people. That's lost opportunity. That's what we're solving." My co-panelists nodded thoughtfully. The VP of Product tapped a note into her iPad. Our CTO scribbled a question on the back of a printout. Tyler locked eyes with me for a second. Just one. And I gave him nothing. No smirk. No nod. No recognition. He shifted his weight, looked back at his slide. He was cracking. "We've developed an AI engine that integrates psychographic scoring and behavioral analysis, stripping out identifiers that trigger unconscious bias. Instead of resumes, we evaluate real-world capability patterns. Culture fit, learning velocity, communication." He paused, swallowed. "Communication style," he added quickly. Sorry. There it was. Crack number 2. I let my gaze drift to the corner of his slide where he'd included 3 logos: Stripe, Salesforce, and Google, beneath the words beta interest. That was bold. Too bold. Our CTO leaned forward. "Are those companies under NDA?" Tyler hesitated for just a second too long. "We're in informal conversations," he said, eyes darting. "Exploratory phases. You know how it is." That was all I needed. The CTO nodded slowly, not convinced, but polite. Tyler rushed to the next slide, suddenly over-explaining user growth projections. The pitch ended 5 minutes later. "Thank you for your time," Tyler said, stepping back from the podium with that faux humble nod I'd seen him give over turkey and stuffing. "I'm excited about where we're going and, hopefully, about working together." He looked at me again, but I was already flipping my notebook shut. The silence afterward was clinical. Each panelist wrote a few notes. Our head of people had her "I'm neutral but thinking" expression plastered on like armor. "Any follow-up questions?" she asked. "No," I said. That single word landed harder than any critique. Tyler blinked. I didn't ask about his tech stack. I didn't ask about his so-called algorithm. I didn't need to, because I already knew the truth. Tyler Beck had walked into the lion's den thinking it was a wine tasting. He packed up slowly, giving forced smiles to the room. He made a point to shake hands with the VP, who gave him a polite nod. The CTO avoided eye contact. And then he turned to me. "Emily," he said, quieter now. "Crazy running into you, huh?" I smiled. "Not friendly?" Not cruel, just final. We'll be in touch. That's when he knew. That phrase? It's polite enough to mean anything. But Tyler was too self-aware not to hear the edge in my voice, the inevitability behind it. He left the room with his shoulders too straight, like he knew if he let them slump, he'd fall apart completely. When the door closed, the air lightened. The CTO cleared his throat. Interesting concept, but some red flags. Yeah, the VP agreed. Nice polish, but I didn't like his dodging. Feels rehearsed. The head of people turned to me. You didn't say much. I shrugged. Sometimes you don't need to. She smiled knowingly. Want us to dig deeper? Please, I said. Let's run a background check. Just standard due diligence. They nodded. Nothing unusual there. It was our protocol for any candidate who made it to this stage. Normally, I wouldn't request it personally, but then again, normally, I wasn't reviewing a man who laughed when my father belittled me at dinner. I stood, gathering my notes, and in the margin of my final page I'd written one word: pattern. Because men like Tyler always had one. They rise fast, talk loud, cut corners, sell futures they haven't earned yet. But eventually, they all reveal themselves, and I'd just opened the first crack in the surface. Let the silence settle now. Let him sweat. Let him wonder how much I saw. Because next time, I wouldn't be quiet, I'd be precise. Tyler left the pitch room like a man who had just stepped off a cliff but hadn't hit the ground yet. I watched him go. No rush in my movements, no emotion on my face. He didn't know what hit him because nothing had, yet. That was the beauty of it. Silence isn't just absence, it's potential. It's the air before the storm, and I intended to let him sit in it for a while. The rest of the day passed like any other. Calls, Slack threads, 3 back-to-back product demos. But under it all, there was a quiet hum, like a thread of electricity running just beneath my skin. Tyler Beck had walked into my world without knowing it. Now he'd walked out with the wrong idea, that I hadn't noticed him, hadn't connected the dots, hadn't made my move. That was fine. I wanted him thinking that. Because men like him never fear silence. They fear what comes after. Our internal review panel debriefed the next morning. I sat at the head of the glass conference table, coffee in hand, flipping through printed summary sheets. Each founder had been scored: tech viability, leadership, scalability, ethics. Verity AI had landed somewhere in the middle, too polished, not enough substance, questions about data integrity, vague partnerships, suspected resume inflation. I've got questions, the CTO said, frowning. Some of the tech Tyler claims to have doesn't add up. He used some language we're already using in-house, the VP added. Felt lifted. I nodded once. Let's do a deeper audit. Background and code sample analysis. Cross-reference his claims with any prior projects he's worked on. No one asked why I was taking a personal interest. My position meant I didn't have to justify that. Still, I didn't offer anything. I wanted the data to speak for itself. By the end of the day, the request was in motion. Our legal and compliance teams would run the usual vetting protocols: code plagiarism checks, funding history verification, employment background. But I added one extra flag: full resume validation. I knew how this would unfold, because I'd seen it before. In boardrooms, in investor calls, in networking events where someone tried to sell me recycled code wrapped in charisma. There's always a crack. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That night, Tyler messaged me. Not through work channels, not email. He slid into my LinkedIn DMs like a man trying to rewrite the narrative before it was written. Hey Emily, wild seeing you yesterday. You look great. Didn't know you were involved with that fund. Super exciting stuff. Would love to grab coffee sometime, just to catch up and talk shop. I've always admired what you do. It was a neat little play. Flattery, familiarity, and the strategic compliment. What you do. Deliberately vague so it couldn't be called out. I didn't respond. Let the silence stretch. The next morning, Lauren texted. Ty said he saw you yesterday? Said it was awkward, but you handled it well. He was super impressed. I stared at the screen for a moment. That word again. Handled. Like I was some skittish pet at a family function. Something to manage. I didn't realize you were still involved in tech stuff. Didn't you do, like, data or something before? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have sent her a link. Just one. My last interview in Forbes. The one where I spoke about equity in hiring, about the systemic rot underneath modern recruitment, about how Seamline was leading the charge to rebuild it all. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I typed 2 words. Still involved. Then I muted the thread. By Thursday, compliance had compiled a report. It landed in my inbox at 3:47 p.m., flagged urgent. I skimmed it in silence. 2 falsified credentials, one from a university that confirmed he never completed his master's program, and another from a past startup where he'd inflated his title and role. Worse, we caught a section of his product pitch that matched word for word a white paper published by an AI ethics researcher 2 years ago. No attribution. He didn't just bend the truth, he rewrote it. And now, I had the receipts. I read the last line of the report twice. Based on findings, recommendation, disqualify from funding consideration. I clicked forward, typed in the internal investment review team's address, and wrote a single sentence. Disqualify immediately. Notify applicant. CC founder relations. Then, just before I hit send, I added 2 more recipients to the CC line. Lauren Beck. Robert Beck, my father. I didn't add a note. I didn't explain. I just let the truth speak for itself. Tyler wanted to be a star. Let him shine now. In full light. I hit send. Then I sat back and watched the screen go dark. No victory music, no confetti. Just that same quiet hum. The silence after the move. The best part? He wouldn't even realize the weight of it. Yet. But it was coming. And when it hit, there would be no misunderstandings, no miscommunications, no gaslighting. Just one undeniable message. You tried to play me. Now you're the one being evaluated. Friday started with an inbox full of silence. No replies, no reactions. Just that quiet, pregnant pause that always follows a well-placed strike. Tyler hadn't written back. Lauren hadn't texted. My father hadn't called. Good. Let them sit with it. Let them feel the chill of exposure. By noon, the investment committee had removed Verity AI from consideration. The CTO sent a brief message. Appreciate the heads up. Would have been a mess. I gave nothing in return but a simple, agreed. We moved on. That's the beautiful part about this world. Once the mask slips, the door closes fast. No one wants to back the guy who can't verify his own resume, especially not in AI, where trust is currency. Still, the report echoed in my mind. The fake master's degree was bad enough. He'd listed Stanford, of all places, on his founder bio. But worse was the plagiarism. Our audit software caught entire paragraphs lifted from a white paper written by Dr. Sahil Mehta, one of the leading voices in AI ethics. He didn't even change the phrasing, he just took it, like it belonged to him. I couldn't stop thinking about the arrogance of that. Not just the theft, but the assumption he wouldn't be caught, that no one would dig deeper, that looking the part was enough. And maybe, for people like Tyler, it always had been. Until now. I waited until after our last founder debrief before composing the rejection. Short, precise, professional. Subject: Verity AI. Application outcome: Tyler, thank you for presenting at our recent pitch session. After internal review and standard due diligence, we've chosen not to proceed with investment. We wish you the best moving forward. Emily Chen, CEO, Seamline founder, Catalyst Fund. Then, just before I hit send, I added one more line. CC, Lauren Beck. I didn't include context. I didn't have to. She'd know. That was the point. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Lauren. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. I answered on the fourth. Her voice came through tight, like a wire pulled too thin. What the hell was that? Hi, Lauren. Don't, hi, Lauren, me. You CC'd me on his rejection email? Yes. You humiliated him. No, I said. He did that himself. She went quiet for a beat. Then, this is personal. You torpedoed his company because you don't like him. No, I said again, evenly. I disqualified him because he lied. He falsified credentials. He plagiarized work from a published researcher. We don't fund frauds. He's not a fraud, she snapped. He's figuring it out. Everyone stretches things a little. I closed my laptop. Is that what you tell yourself? I asked. That ethics are flexible if the person is charming enough? More silence. Then, you've always hated when someone else got attention. This is about Thanksgiving. Admit it. No, I said calmly. Thanksgiving was just a reminder. Of what? That I spent years downplaying myself so no one else would feel small. That I stayed quiet while people like you, like him, took up space you hadn't earned. She scoffed. This is petty. No, I said. It's overdue. She didn't hang up, but she didn't respond either. The silence stretched long enough for me to hear her breathing. Then she said, softer now. He really liked you, you know. That made me laugh. Not loudly, just a dry exhale. No, Lauren, he didn't. He liked what he thought I was. And he hated what I actually am. There was a pause. I don't know what you want me to say, she finally muttered. You don't have to say anything, I replied. But maybe next time you bring someone home, find out if he's actually building something. I leaned forward, cut cleanly. Or if he's just practicing his pitch on you. She hung up. I sat there, phone still in hand, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office. The city below buzzed like always. Lights blinked on. Cable cars rattled in the distance. Somewhere, someone was making a promise they couldn't keep. But not me. Not anymore. My father emailed that evening. No subject line. Just a single sentence. You owe your sister an apology. I stared at the words for a full minute. Then I copied a link from my bookmarks and replied. No, Dad. I owe her the truth. No sign-off. No warmth. Just facts. The article had been published months ago. A full feature on Seamline, our mission, and our founder's commitment to ethical AI. My face on the cover. My words quoted. My work laid bare in black and white. They'd never read it. Maybe now they would. I closed my laptop and leaned back. Let the silence hold again. Let it speak louder than I ever could. Because I wasn't the one pretending to matter anymore. It took less than 24 hours for the family group chat to explode. It started with a simple notification. Lauren changed the group name to Family Only. That told me everything. Tyler was out. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The next few messages came rapid fire like little flares in the dark, each one more desperate than the last. Mom. Emily, can we talk? Dad. This wasn't your call to make? Aunt Marla. I always said she was too intense. Lauren. I hope you're proud of yourself. Proud? No. But I was clear. Clearer than I'd been in years. I'd spent the better part of my adult life pretending that silence was peace. That letting things go was the high road. But I wasn't walking that road anymore. I wasn't the family disappointment. I was just the one who stopped playing dumb. The calls started next. Mom first, then Dad, then Lauren twice, late at night. I let them go to voicemail. Each time, the same internal argument. Just pick up. Just get it over with. Just explain. But I was done explaining. Done justifying. I didn't need to convince them I was right. The truth was already out there. Written in black ink in Forbes. In the code Tyler plagiarized. In the degree he never earned. In the startup he built like a house on sand. On Sunday night, I finally opened Lauren's last message. He broke down tonight. Said you embarrassed him. Said you made him feel small. I stared at that line for a long time. Made him feel small. He hadn't felt small when he lied on his application, or when he lifted someone else's research, or when he sat at our family table laughing at my expense. But now, when the consequences showed up, now he felt small. Good. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up the investor email he'd used for Verity AI and forwarded him one final message. No subject line, no body text, just a single attachment. His original pitch deck, side by side with the published white paper he'd copied from, marked in red with every plagiarized sentence highlighted. No commentary, no lecture, just facts. Let him sit with it. Let him finally see what accountability looked like. On Monday morning, I got a call I hadn't expected. It wasn't Lauren. It wasn't my father. It was the editor from TechCrunch. Emily, she said, I've got 2 anonymous tips that you uncovered plagiarism in a startup pitch. One says it was a known fraud. The other says you pulled the funding yourself. Off the record. What's the real story? I didn't hesitate. On the record, I said, we have strict ethical standards. We don't fund liars. Doesn't matter who they're dating. She laughed, low and surprised. Can I quote you on that? You just did. The article went live that afternoon. CEO Emily Chen denies funding to AI startup over plagiarism claims. The piece was clinical, but pointed. It named no names, but anyone who'd seen Tyler's LinkedIn the past 6 months could connect the dots, especially since he'd been bragging for weeks about big money on the horizon from a female-run fund in San Francisco. That same evening, his Verity AI website went offline. And Lauren? She went silent. Not blocked, not disappeared, just absent. And that was the part that ached, even now. Because for all the tension, for all the cruelty, she was still my sister. Still the girl who used to sneak into my room at night when the wind scared her. Still the teenager I covered for when she missed curfew. But she made her choice. She stood by a man who used her as a social ladder. And when I pulled that ladder out from under him, she took the fall with him. That wasn't my doing. That was hers. I got one last message that week, from my father. It wasn't a scolding. It wasn't even an apology. It was a photo. Me, age 12, standing on stage at my first coding competition, hair in a ponytail, hoodie 2 sizes too big, holding a second-place trophy like it was the key to another world, and beneath it, just one sentence. I should have paid attention. That one hit harder than I expected, not because it healed anything, but because it was the closest thing to the truth he'd ever offered me. He didn't apologize. He didn't have to. I knew what that sentence cost him. I turned my phone off that night and poured a glass of red wine, sat by the window, legs curled under me, and watched the city pulse. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at them. Not even at Tyler. I was just awake. Wide awake to who I was, what I'd built, and how easy it had been for everyone to ignore it, until it suited them not to. But now the silence had been broken, and once you've spoken your truth, you don't go back. It had been 5 months since the pitch, since the email, since the fallout. Tyler disappeared from every platform. His startup folded quietly, the domain rerouted to a blank page. A few VC friends confirmed what I already suspected. No one would touch him now. The whispers were enough. The gaps in his resume. The stammer when anyone asked why his round never closed. In this world, reputation is currency, and he'd burned his before it ever cashed. I hadn't spoken to Lauren since. Not directly, anyway. Mom tried, of course. Passive-aggressive messages about healing and family first. Dad sent 2 emails. One, a blurry scan of an old birthday card I'd made him in 3rd grade. The other, a link to a podcast episode about forgiveness. I didn't respond to either. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about boundaries. Peace. Then one Saturday in May, there was a knock at my door. No text. No warning. Just the dull echo of knuckles against glass. I looked through the peephole, and there she was. Lauren, alone. No makeup. No designer coat. Just a hoodie, leggings, and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in days. I opened the door without a word. We stood there for a moment, not speaking. Then she said, softly, "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked slowly into the living room, eyes scanning the space like it was her first time seeing it. It wasn't. But this time, she was seeing it differently. Seeing me differently. "Nice place," she said, her voice cracking just a little. I didn't answer. I just waited. She sat on the edge of the couch like it might swallow her. "He told me everything," she said finally. "About the pitch. The fake degree. The plagiarism. All of it." I nodded. "Figured." She looked down at her hands. "He said he thought you'd never check. That you were just someone's sister. That you wouldn't know." I raised an eyebrow. "He was right about one thing." She looked up. "I am someone's sister," I said. "And I would have done the same thing even if I wasn't." She blinked fast, trying to hold something back. Regret? Embarrassment? Or maybe just the crushing weight of finally seeing the truth. "I left him," she said. 2 months ago. I didn't say good. I just waited. "He tried to use my name," she continued. "Told investors I was your in. Said we were tight. Said you'd vouch for him." My jaw clenched. "He what?" "Yeah," she said, laughing once, dry and humorless. "He even rehearsed how I should talk about you. Like we were sisters who really respected each other, even if we were so different. He said it made him look more trustworthy." I sat down across from her. "And you believed him?" She nodded. "I wanted to, because I didn't want to admit I'd chosen wrong. Again." We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then she looked me in the eye. "I don't know how you do it." I frowned. "Do what?" "Stay so calm, so composed, even when everyone tears you down." I let out a slow breath. "I'm not always composed, Lauren. You just weren't looking when I wasn't." She flinched a little at that, but she nodded. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "I never did." Tears welled in her eyes. "I just stopped trying to make you see me." She wiped at her cheek with her sleeve. "I see you now." I believed her. But I didn't need her to say it anymore. I didn't need her approval, her apology, or her validation. Because I had mine. I had built a company, a life, a name. I had stopped waiting for the applause that was never coming, and started clapping for myself. Still, I offered her tea. We sat for an hour, talked. Not as rivals, not as symbols of who succeeded and who failed, but as 2 women who had both been burned by charm and learned to stop mistaking it for warmth. When she left, she hugged me. It was awkward at first, then real. "I'm not asking for a reset," she said as she stepped back. "But I'd like to try again, as who we are now." I gave a small nod. "Okay." She smiled. Not the wide, practiced one she wore at parties. This one was tired. honest. Then she was gone, and I stood in the quiet of my home, a little lighter, not vindicated, not triumphant, just free. She didn't fix anything by showing up, but she tried, and that mattered, because it wasn't about being right anymore. It was about being real, about knowing exactly who I was, and no longer needing anyone's permission to be her. Thanksgiving came again. Same calendar page, same drive out of the city, same winding roads flanked by brittle orange trees clinging to the last of their leaves. But everything else? Different. I pulled into my parents' driveway just before noon. The house looked the same. White siding, weathered porch, faded welcome mat. But the tension that usually clung to my chest like a second skin was missing. I wasn't here to perform. I wasn't here to be tolerated. I was here because I chose to be. Lauren opened the door before I could knock. She smiled, genuine this time, and pulled me into a hug that felt less like ceremony and more like recognition. We hadn't spoken every day since that afternoon on my couch, but we had found a rhythm. Honest, cautious, real. Inside, the house buzzed with familiar sounds, pots clanking, voices overlapping, the distant hum of a football game. But the energy had shifted. My mother looked up from the kitchen counter and blinked twice. "You're early," she said, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Traffic was kind," I replied. She smiled, soft, tentative. "Well, your room's made. We weren't sure you'd come." I didn't respond. I just stepped into the kitchen and helped myself to the platter of olives. My father appeared a few minutes later. No lecture, no passive comments, just a quiet nod and a handshake that held a little more weight than it used to. We didn't talk about Tyler. We didn't talk about the article. We didn't have to. People like them, they'll never apologize with words, but they'll say it in small gestures, in the way they look at you differently, in the space they give you now, in the absence of the eye rolls, the dismissive chuckles, the tired jokes about being too serious. This time, when I spoke, they listened, not with indulgence, with attention. Dinner was set at 4. The table looked like it always had. Linen napkins, mismatched silverware, the giant ceramic turkey centerpiece Mom insisted on every year. Except this year, there was something new. A place card at the head of the table, with my name on it. "Is this?" I started. Mom shrugged like it was no big deal. "Well, you got in early. Figured you could help serve." But it wasn't about serving. It was about the seat. The one that, for years, had gone to the loudest voice, the flashiest success, the newest boyfriend. Now it was mine. I sat, slowly, let the weight of it settle in my spine. Across from me, Lauren gave a small nod. And when Dad made the toast that night, he didn't start with some long-winded story about the old days or a jab about real jobs. He said, "To everyone at this table, and to those of us still figuring out how to be better." That was it. No grand speech. Just enough. Dinner went by in a blur of stories, laughter, clinking glasses. And not once did anyone mention why I wasn't married, why I didn't smile more, or what I was doing with my life. Because now they knew. Not just what I did, who I was. Later, when the dishes were cleared and the pie was served, Mom brought out a bottle of wine from a vineyard near my office. "One of your company's clients, right?" I blinked. "Yeah." She poured carefully. "Thought you might like it. We read that article, the one in Forbes. It was impressive." She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't have to. I nodded, clinked glasses with her, and let the sip settle. The conversation shifted to safe things. Weather, neighborhood gossip, the grandkids' school plays. And I just sat there, at the head of the table, not smiling for them, just smiling. for me. Because for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't shrinking to make space for anyone else. I wasn't biting my tongue to keep the peace. I wasn't pretending that silence was strength or that invisibility was virtue. I was here, fully, unapologetically. Not the daughter they tolerated, not the sister they dismissed. The woman who built something from nothing, who stood her ground, who let the storm pass and then walked forward anyway. At the end of the night, as coats were gathered and leftovers packed, Dad pulled me aside near the door. "I don't know if I said it before," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck, "but I'm proud of you. I really am." I looked at him for a long second. Then I nodded. "Thank you." I didn't hug him. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. I got in my car, pulled out of the driveway, and watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like I was driving away from something. I felt like I was driving toward myself.